Hey guys, it's Matt. Somehow it's Thursday, August 3rd, 2023. Welcome back to another edition of Midnight Reality, going out to exactly no radio stations across the country and just limited to one censored YouTube channel. Now today is Thursday, associated with Jupiter, and Jupiter is proudly associated with the metal tin. Must be very proud. The sun gets gold, the moon gets silver, and what does big old Jupiter get so powerful, right? Isn't that their empire building of these creeps? They get tin, that piece of shit metal tin. That's why Jupiter's up in our business all day long, because it's got a shit-ass metal that ain't worth shit. I bet the creeps are still kind of pissed off about that. How did tin get assigned to Jupiter? I listened to Livette for years. She talked about the creeps' astrology is built around Jupiter and the star Sirius. That's why John McEnroe says to the lineman, you cannot be Sirius, because when they miss a call, that lineman cannot see. So everybody thinks it's Saturn. No, Matt, their astrology is built around Saturn. I ain't no astrologist, but I trust Livette in these matters. I don't think it's as simple as, oh, that's Satan, that's Saturn. I don't think it's that simple. But either way, all the planets, they don't lay a cornerstone on a Starbucks in Washington, D.C. without the planets in a certain place. So that to this day, I think they're probably still pissed off that somebody way back when assigned tin to Jupiter. Hey, if Hermes Trismegistus or Trismegistic or whatever, if he assigned that metal as the original alchemist or whatever to Jupiter, hey, there ain't nothing they can do about it. But when I think of tin, I think of some guy panhandling. It takes me back to the video we just did on San Francisco. The panhandler is a tin cups. Tin cup, that's Kevin Costner in the golf movie. Panhandlers, tin, piece of shit metal nobody cares about. Those creeps are still pissed off about it. And before we get to our topics list in today's Midnight Reality, and I will end the stupid radio voice in just a moment, wanted to give a public service announcement about reality itself, where the reality works overtime to make everything seem incredibly complicated, convoluted, and complex. Oh, the 3 C's. That must be a code that that Matt just put out. Oh boy. And somebody really wishes they could see what I was wearing so they could examine my t-shirt. So in the dark part of reality, the asshole dark or the not Nilk is trying to work overtime to make something really complicated, and the subject is something extremely important to our existence or life in this material plane, then you know the answer is just the opposite. It's just to go 179.5 degrees. It means it's really, really simple, and it's trying to make it complicated. Now, this is a trivial example, but it's something that just came up recently. You know, I touch base with that Matt Wolf channel every week or two to see what's going on in the AI world and all the free programs that are just, they spent hundreds of millions of dollars of R&D, all of these hundreds of AI companies. Then it makes perfect sense. Just give it to you for free. And you can do the beta test, you can load it or the open source platforms right on your own computer. So, and if you get into the weeds with it, it's like all these hundreds of companies producing different types of AI. And the last thing I watched at the Matt Wolf channel, you can load up an image and it takes hours to render, but it will render a full 3-dimensional image where you can spin around and look at the image as it's extrapolated what the back would look like and all that stuff. Of course, all given out for free. If you're in the weeds, it's very complicated. But what we do is we go up to 100,000 feet, go up in our Truther hot air balloon, look down, and it's really, really simple. They seem to be in a rush to put the human being 5.0 or 50.0 or whatever the number is. Maybe they'll add another sapien onto Homo sapien. To me, when they do the triple sapien, that will be the human that is chosen to live inside the digital world. They seem to be in a rush to have the human. That's what they call us. I'm not that. I don't call myself a human being. I don't know what that is. But they want us in a fully immersive digital environment. And they can only go so far in their own research labs and behind closed doors. The way they take it to the next level is to give it away to tens of millions of people. So real people, real generative beings can put in their creative input, and the AI can learn from that. And it's just a coincidence, Matt. My friend Tony would say, Matt, there is no conspiracy. I think he just emailed me that again. That's all he can parrot back to me. Matt, there is no conspiracy. So I'm reading his email and I started to feel really embarrassed that I was one of those people. And I called him up and I said, I feel really ashamed that I used to investigate that sort of thing. But I want to assure you, Tony, that every night now I watch CNN and I know that will tell me what's real in the world. And I feel embarrassed. I felt the need to go anywhere else but CNN. See, but regarding this AI stuff, though, there's still a few issues. I don't want to be a conspiracy person anymore, but see, it just doesn't make sense. You have hundreds and hundreds of companies all involved in this AI stuff, all giving away their products for free. So where's the money coming from to fund it all? You have the biggest of companies like OpenAI, and what's his name, Sam Altman. He takes like $20,000 salary. They said, oh, he doesn't take any money. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, he's so altruistic. I'm sure there's no money for him anywhere down the line. I almost said Sam Bankman, the Bankman-Friedman, the crypto guy they just took down. But there would be, Matt, you'd have to be one of those people to think there's any sort of spellcraft in the English language. Sam Bankman or whatever, Bankman-Friedman. The other guy's name was Bernie Madoff. He made off with your money. Matt, you're not one of, I get, in the terms of the English language and its spellcraft, I am one of those people. But Tony, you have all these hundreds and hundreds of companies involved in the AI. So this company over here is involved in Bill's favorite topic, the art rendering. And this company over here does the art to video. And this company over here creates the 3D image. But this company over here does the voice and the AI deepfakes with the voice. And you can pretend you're Joe Biden and all this stuff. And over here, they do the large language models, the LLMs like the Bard and the ChatGPT. And over the last 5 years, probably tens of billions of dollars of research and development money and server farms bigger than football fields that probably cost about $100 million a day to maintain. And then in the capitalist model, then you just give all that away for free. Whoever wants it can just get it. See? You can put it right on your own computer. You can take all the open source here. Take the code. It's like Eddie Murphy when he dressed up as you-know-what. He went into the bank and they said, don't say anything. Just take the money. Don't I have to pay it back? Isn't there interest? No, it's just take it. And that was a Saturday Night Live truth drop back in the mid to late 80s when Eddie Murphy dressed up and powdered his nose as a white man. You just say take it because the bank didn't do anything for it in the first place. They made the money up on the ledger on their computer before they gave it out as a loan. But for most people, unless you're in that group, another truth drop, certain groups can just take it and not have to pay it back. Certain groups, there is no such thing as interest. But when your dumb, broke ass goes in for your mortgage, they're going to give you the $300,000 you need for your house. They made the money up that morning on a ledger. They did nothing to acquire it or get it. Then you got to work 30 years, you poor devil, to pay it back with interest. So regarding the AI, when we're told by the normie that there is no conspiracy, I guess to them it makes perfect sense that these hundreds of companies collectively could have put in $10 to $20 billion of research and development money, and then they don't need anything back. The profits? What's that? You just give it away. But then you'd say, well, wait a second. That's the exact opposite argument that the big drug companies have been giving us for the past 20 years. Merck and Pfizer and Glaxo and Novo Nordisk and all that, they've come forth and said, we need to charge up to $10,000 a pill in some cases because it costs us billions to develop these drugs that actually make you sicker than what we're trying to cure, but it costs us billions to develop these drugs that make you sicker. So we have to be able to make these profits on the back end. And everybody said, well, yeah, they might have to charge $10,000 a pill in some cases because they spent so many billions developing it. But then why doesn't that apply to all the companies working in AI? See, they put all these billions in, but now how come the drug companies don't just give it away like the tech companies do in the AI? The point is, there's obviously a lot more here going on than what it seems or that what CNN would talk about. And this whole push for AI is a not-NILC-funded endeavor of the highest priority at this time. Not only do they have all these companies working in the different facets of AI, like we talked about, the video over here, the 3D imaging, the voice, the large language models, there's redundancy. They have 15 companies, in some cases, doing the same thing. Well, they're not going to take that risk knowing that only 1 out of 15 is ultimately going to succeed. Obviously, the not-NILC is throwing out grants, or whatever you want to call them, contracts, grants, to anyone that will dabble in AI. This is just the way it does business. If there are 5 kids that just graduate Berkeley that are, supercomputer wizards like the Mark Zuckerberg types, and these 5 kids put a company together and they could prove just in 1 or 2 meetings that they are well versed in moving this AI forward, I assure you, after 1 or 2 meetings, whatever this Not Milk funded thing that's going on here, we'll throw a few $100 million at them and say, they'll throw the money all over the place, knowing only 1 or 2 will succeed, and the rest they say, you know what? Try your best, wink, wink. If it doesn't work out, the company goes defunct in 5 years. Oh, and you, that little golden parachute clause in your contract, you'll walk away with $12 to $15 million. It's that simple. It really is. There's no other reason they would be giving this away for free. So there's no doubt about it that the Not Milk is trying to have as many companies form right now as humanly possible to basically do more R&D on all aspects of what you would call AI. So how does the angel investor meeting go with the 5 kids that just came out of Columbia University that seem to be AI experts that want to form a company? Hey, let's go out to Silicon Valley or wherever. We hear they're giving out grant money like they're throwing saltwater taffy off the Atlantic City pier. All we need to do is basically show up and they'll give us a grant. Really? Yeah, basically that's what's happening. But in the meeting, the 5 kids that just put this AI company together, and again, the Not Milk knows only 1 out of 20 will succeed. It doesn't care. Money is no issue. In the meeting, the kids may say, well, wait a second, 5 to 8 years from now, don't we have to turn a profit? And what if this doesn't work out? And again, the Not Milk demons on the other side of the table are positioning as angel investors in their Armani suits would say, you let us worry about the profitability. Here's $25 million check across the table right now, cashier's check to get you started. And then we'll do a review on you in 2 months. And if you're making any sort of progress at all, that's when your $100 million grant will come. And see, again, there's clauses in your contract. You let us worry about the profitability. You walk away, worst case scenario, walk away with $10 million each. Now, what do you say to that, you poor devils? We know this is how it works because it's exactly how it played out during the .com era. Then it was all about websites, whatever could be done via a website. And the Not Milk wasn't expert at all this, but they knew these Mark Zuckerberg types and kids were coming out and they would do it all. They would create the infrastructure for the Not Milk. The Not Milk just has to sense what this could become. And I'll never forget, this kid knew nothing about nothing. I mean, he knew how to make a website. He probably didn't know much about business. I don't know if it was Leslie Stahl or Morley Safier, one of these old 60 Minutes interviewers, interviewed this young man who did this. I don't know, he had 10 employees, and it was in the middle of the .com. He had just gotten some huge angel investment. And again, 98% went out of business. But those that started the company walked away, at least with a few $1 million minimum. And she said, what advice would you give to any young person coming out of college now? And the guy, like, creepily, I just remember this to a degree. He looks into the camera and he just says, to get ahead, start a website. Like, what does that mean? Start a website? But it literally, in the early days of this .com boom, 97, 96, 97, 98, I've talked about this in the past, so I'll be brief. If you literally just created a business with a website, they would throw 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars at you. I remember talking recently about Webvan. Webvan, it was literally just guys delivering groceries. It was 99 point whatever percent about trucks and labor and picking up boxes and delivering cucumbers. But they had a website where you could go on the website rudimentarily and say, I want 2 boxes of apples. Because they had a website, the damn angel investors, on behalf of Not Milk, of course, threw hundreds of millions of dollars. There was one of these .com booms and bust, Webvan, like Pets.com. And the guy was right. He basically, and I thought, what does that mean, just create a website? Well, if he would have been a little bit more articulate in what he meant, he would have said, and again, I had no tech ability. I couldn't program anything. I was in the insurance business at that point. But to help, young people along, and there was that 7 or 8 year period where these young kids became multimillionaires. All they had to do was be able to program websites. There were no programs that created your own website. You had to know the HTML and all that. But the kid, if he would have just said, you just need a basic business model, something that maybe already exists in the real world, but doing it or creating a way to do it through the web or to do it through the website. You create that, these assholes will throw $100 million at you. It happened via the dot-com boom, and it's happening now with the AI. What is happening right now seems to be happening exactly like the dot-com boom, where they threw billions of dollars at any young person that formed a company that could create a model, a business model centered around a website. I know that seems strange today, but that was a new thing back in 96. You had to know what you're doing to create a website. So you're coming out of Dartmouth University, 5 kids get together and they think they know something about AI. They can get the investment to form a company. Maybe, again, they have to prove that they know a little bit about something that can help the Not Nilk move this forward. Maybe they don't get their huge $50 million investment till they put in 6 months. But if there's any chance that this little company formed by this little group of grad students or whoever forms it, if there's any chance that the Not Nilk thinks they can help them move the overall AI platform forward, they're going to throw unlimited money. And again, money is no object. They can print $1 trillion a second. Money is never a concern of the Not Nilk. I still see first grade truther comments about money laundering and things. Maybe they're allowing certain lower level minions to money launder, and that might be important to lower level minions that the Not Nilk allows to go do that. But to the highest level of the creepy org chart, it's not about money laundering. It's never about money. So I don't know what like a normal person or somebody like my friend Tony would say about the business model here. If you could pin them down, or like maybe just book us both into the room, or put them in like a scene from Clockwork Orange where to pin the eyes open somehow and say, well, all these billions invested, right? All these years and billions, and the server farms by themselves or supercomputers that cost what, $100 million a week or whatever. I mean, who knows? The total cost is pretty astronomical, obviously. So then you giving it all away, and they have nothing to say in terms of, well, those profits will come later. How? The toothpaste is out of the damn tube. People have the code. They have been given the open source. The models they're not even proprietary. It's given away. What would somebody like my friend Tony say about the ultimate business model here? Okay, I hear you. Eventually, there will be profits, a Google type of AI. Will it be OpenAI? Will it be Sam Bankman-Friedman, Madoff, Altman's? OpenAI will emerge as the Google of AI, and then you have to make it look good to the normie. Of course, then there will be huge profits, but the fact remains, as of this moment, they have given 99 point whatever percent of it away. Just completely stuff that they spent years on potentially and billions of dollars on. It would be literally like Coca-Cola giving its formula away, or Merck or Pfizer for the exact whatever's in whatever drug and how to produce it, just giving it all away. Now, I know you who has the $100 million to go create the factory and produce the drug generically. I hear you, but that's much easier with That's much easier with AI or a computer. You don't need a $100 billion factory to replicate the Merck drug or whatever. So, all they would do, my friend Tony, he would parrot something back that makes him sleep well at night, and then he would just finish the email with, Matt, there is no conspiracy. Then like Melvin, I'd write back to Tony and say, Tony, I'm sorry, Bezos. There is no conspiracy. I'm going to go back to CNN. I promise I'm going to go back to CNN, and Anderson Cooper is going to tell me how the world really works. And I really feel really embarrassed all the time I put in investigate anything other than CNN. Oh, and by the way, I'm really looking forward to the presidential race coming up. I've lost it, guys. Matt has lost it. If this channel starts turning into a political commentary about the upcoming presidential race, and me start present for many videos, you'll think I'm kidding, but then it'll turn out he's really believing in this. Trump, Biden, if Matt sinks into the download, that will be depressing for some. The Ministry of Magic has fallen. Quantum of Conscience has fallen. He now believes in the presidential election cycle and will be actively campaigning for Trump. So wrapping this section up, let me reiterate the most important point. It went way too long considering this point is like one sentence, but we had fun with it. That the Not Nilk, the Asshole Dark, the Plumber's Ass Crack works very, very hard to make the most important concepts about existence and life very complicated. So nobody really understands what's going on. When it's working real hard to make something complicated, that means the answer is very, very simple. And if you back up far enough and you go into your truth or hot air balloon and you look down and you see the whole, the simple nature of it can be easily understood. And everything becomes one or two sentences. As usual, the Not Nilk is playing its same variation of the same age-old game to remove a real person from its spiritual self, to hide that aspect from a real person, to have that person remove one of two arms of Vitruvian Man. The arm that remains is the materialistic side, the side that pulls on that side of the rope in the tug of war. It's the same game every single time. Putting the human being further into the immersive digital environment. Okay, you could say this is an illusion we're in right now, whatever. We'll debate that some other time. But going into the VR headset environment and making that lower level your world or your new world, that's removing you further from spiritual self. Well, Matt, the Vitruvian Man, the spiritual arm's already been ripped off. How can it be ripped off even further? That's a good point. But it never tires, it never stops. It's the Terminator. It will always work, even when look around. I mean, some people would say it's accomplished its goals. Look around at your friends and family, but it will never stop. That is its role here. That if it's not, it will never be 99 point whatever percent satisfied. The decimal point will go out. It will never get to 100%. And then after it gets everybody into the virtual environments, and that removes people from spiritual self, then it will work on something else. Of course, it won't stop. It won't put its feet up and smoke a cigar and say, we did a good job. It just doesn't do that. That's its role here. So you back up, you look down and say, oh, all this AI stuff, all these companies that don't need to make a profit, just one more incremental step to move the human away from understanding its true nature. It's the same sentence every single time. It only differs in its tactics. Quick new topic before we move on to something else regarding an email that I just got from Charlie referencing my video on Sunday about San Francisco and the intentional destruction. At least phase one is the retail shopping, the famous Market Street, as well as Union Square and some other places. So Charlie says, he grew up there, or he's known the San Francisco Bay Area his whole life, said that the aspect that I presented about it being a ritual of some kind, that really resonates with him. And what exactly that means, we don't know, but it could be something like a foreshadowing of what they intend to do to the downtown areas of all the other U.S. big cities, or it could be specific to San Francisco. Charlie pointed out to me that San Francisco, for lack of a better word, is so occult important to them for whatever reason that it could be specific. It is still a ritual, but could be specific to San Francisco. And guys, I've been stressing that we don't need to understand their creepy ways. What did we do 10, 12 years ago? Oh, it was our duty as truthers to figure it out, to figure out what the Baphomet means to them and why they use the 33 and what this symbol means to them and what the swoosh really means to Nike. I've been stressing over and over, guys, we don't need to figure it out. The Not Nilk wants you in those weeds. It needs you in those weeds. It needs you on that wall. It wants you trying to figure out their creepy ways. Maybe they need those things. Do you? I'm done with it. I don't care what the Baphomet means to them. They need their gematria and their creepy symbols and all this shit. We're done with it. I implore you that is first grade BitChute truth. Let them do whatever they want. We just, Matt, you're talking about it now, but I'm just noticing it. With Charlie in general saying this seems to be a ritual. Once we put that on the table as a possibility, then we could use it in terms of trying to figure out what they have in store in the future. In terms of determining exactly what the ritual is, who cares? And I'm sorry if anybody's eating, but Charlie also sent me an article reminding me that as far back as 2018, San Francisco and other California cities were moving to get recycled wastewater. I don't want to be too gross, but certain things happen in toilets, and then that will become your drinking water. But now I know other parts of the world are doing it as well. That's gone quiet, it seems. I don't follow any news, so maybe it hasn't. But to me, if it's gone quiet, that means they've probably implemented it. And I'm sure the technology exists to return pure H2O molecule by molecule without the feces molecules. But how easy would it be to create an outbreak of this or that when that drinking water, we didn't quite scrub it properly. And not only is there a heroin in there and illegal drugs, but there's also, you know what. And now we have to do another lockdown. Everybody's got to stay in because we want you to stay safe. Guys, you know, one of my big phrases for the past 5 years has been whatever gives itself away, which means it has to be revealed. This aspect of reality is revealed in it giving itself away. And it helps us see certain things. I guess it could be put a little bit better in the future, but for now it works. And it helps reveal certain things. And it's not just not milk giving itself away, all different aspects of this reality. So as my normie example, as you know, is Tony. And with just a few more emails back and forth. Again, we've known each other since the 7th grade. And he's relatively cordial in mocking my interests in terms of truth research, etc. You've talked about it many times. But there's one aspect that gives Tony away, or any normal person, if anybody's coming along as a third party saying which side of the argument has merit, and they're trying to be an equal or unbiased judge. And I've talked about this before, but it's worth mentioning. And this is probably your experience as well. But in over, say, 10 years of emailing back and forth, he, and I think almost all normies behave similarly, they won't give you an inch in terms of saying a part of your argument makes sense. Or at least not even saying that your crafted argument makes sense, but at least acknowledging in general that, Matt, I'm not going to go along with your weird theories, but you know, that part of the story that you just laid out, I can't explain. That is strange. They won't go an inch. You know, I've talked about this many times, but it is so fascinating. It almost proves the download. They won't go an inch in your direction. Could present a 1,000-page treatise, and Tony would have an excuse or a way to explain every bit of it away. All thousands of things in the old book about if the world were real, this couldn't happen. What are the chances of this? He would never, ever come an inch closer to me and say, you know, that's a good one, Matt. Boy, that one really makes me think. Now, I know that my friend Tony is so intransigent on this side of the sliding scale. And this goes back even before I started emailing him about truth and things like that. I mean, this is not a fair dealer when they will not ever come back to your argument in any way. And this seems to be a repeating theme with what I call the downloaded normie. And the point of me talking about it is sometimes a few of us do have doubts that, Matt, our little group, we're the only ones that see things a certain way. Maybe we're wrong. And it does come up from time to time. But see, this sort of thing proves we're not wrong. What would we do if somebody came to us, my favorite example of all time said, I just saw a ghost. It could be somebody on the street I don't even know. It could be somebody that lives in the Tenderloin of San Francisco. At least for a few minutes, I'd engage with them. So you just saw a ghost? Wow. You know, tell me about that. Maybe at first, if it was somebody running around Eddy Street on the Tenderloin, I wouldn't believe them right off the bat, depending on who it was. But what if it was somebody like my relationship to Tony, somebody you knew? You just saw a ghost. We'd be interested. Say, tell me about that. First off, these downloaded normies, not only do they run in the other direction, they won't engage with you. And if they do, what gives the whole point of giving themselves away as not fair dealers, that their argument does not have as much merit as ours, because for years they can't give you an inch towards one bit of your argument having any sort of merit. You know, I mean, this is common sense stuff. You know the example I'm referring to here. Stack up 10 bricks. Pull out the 9th brick. What happens to the 10th? Well, it just falls and lands on the 8th. What happens to bricks 1 through 8? Nothing. This isn't like stuff we really are like, it's really a stretch to see what we're pushing. And the fact that they can't acknowledge one aspect of our argument is strong or is interesting or has merit, that does prove that we are right. And their side of the argument, what CNN would tell them what to think about the world, does not have equal merit to our side. Because I assure you, what we've served up to these people over the last 10 years is not baseless hogwash nonsense. It's usually as simple as stack up 10 bricks and pull out the 9th, and what happens to 1 through 8 when the 10th hits on top. I mean, it's literally even more simple than that, usually. Do parents usually come out the day after smiling and laughing? Okay, most of us aren't too concerned that the strength of our argument holds water, but it's just one more thing. How, because they're incapable, almost like an alien species, they're incapable of giving you any credit in terms of anything you're being presented. It's just one more thing that strengthens our argument, but there's one other reason I'm talking about this. Many times, sometimes for fun, but I keep this on the table now, I cannot remove this from the table, that somebody may say, Tony's actually in a different reality, Matt. It's so strange, the differences between what we in our group thinks and what the people around us think, that it would be naive or ignorant to take off the table that they are in a completely different reality. And I will never take that off the table. Okay, the concentric rings diagram, who knows? I've had conversations with Tony, like I've mentioned, where it seemed like we were in different realities because whatever was going out through my reality bubble, it was not translating properly to his. And what I was saying to him, I'm sure, appeared to be nonsense. And what he was saying back to me, for example, about V'ger 1 and 2, appears to me to be absolute nonsense. Or when I've tried to talk to him about the 7-Eleven job application, what comes back is just nonsense. I mean, it's in English and there's a sentence structure, but he'll say things like, I've told you this before, about the big day in 2001, no matter what I'm talking about, the stacking of the bricks or all the strange anomalies and the thousands of things like reality breakdowns, he'll say, I saw it on TV. Now, is that really his response? Or is that the only way that this reality can interpret or mistranslate what he's saying into my reality bubble? It's nonsensical for me to talk about stacking of the bricks and all the other thousands of things where this is a personal conversation. I remember many times he said to me, Matt, I saw it on TV. Like somehow that could override the hundreds upon hundreds of things that don't make sense, the blatant fake news presentations, ridiculous stories, reality breakdowns. Just it's all overridden with, Matt, I saw it on TV. Matt, that's very similar to, Matt, there is no conspiracy. But I'm thinking, okay, would I put all my roulette chips on this number and bet it all that that's the only way whatever he's saying translates out of his personal reality bubble? And this was a personal conversation, and I had this theory in the past. It's not holding up, where the only way to get through to somebody is if you're in close proximity where your reality bubbles can join. It still may have merit. The only way to potentially get through to somebody if you're in close proximity where your reality bubbles are somewhat overlapped. But as we could see through just this example with Tony, that's no guarantee, of course, to get through to anybody. I mean, how many conversations have you had in person about whatever we research where, you didn't get through to them? But I always postulate or theorize maybe that's why they run in the other direction. They want to get their reality bubble no longer touching mine. But that's all stuff we'll ponder later. But I guess what I'm saying is maybe if you're in his reality, he didn't even say, I saw it on TV. He said something that made sense to you if you're in his reality and you believe CNN is real. Guys, I know this is way out, okay? That's what Midnight Reality's for. I mean, I know it goes into places that are a bit strange, and it's not nearly this complicated usually. I got it, okay? But sometimes we play this stuff out. It reveals something that we can use in the future. So if you believe CNN is real and you're sitting with Tony, you heard him say something that makes sense back to me. What I heard was, I saw it on TV. So that morning, Tuesday, a beautiful blue sky September morning, you saw it on TV, so that somehow, quote, trumps or overrides the 100 reality anomalies that I just laid out and the common sense factors that I lay out. Did he really say that? Or is that the only thing that I could hear per the reality bubbles trying to communicate with each other, basically in separate realities? Okay, I know this is way out there, but it doesn't make sense. A lot of the stuff, as a smart, rational individual, some of the stuff he puts forth when we've talked literally doesn't make sense, as if it's, what is that Bill Murray movie, Lost in Translation? Like, is that really what he said? Again, we were talking about Voyager 1 and 2, Voyager, and then saying, well, how could the signal billions of miles away be pointed so perfectly? And it was literally like talking to somebody that was in like that Star Trek episode, out of phase with reality. They're blinking in and out. They're in a totally different dimension. So I'm saying, well, all I can do is line up the most common sense example I can line up. And I've told you this, so I'll be brief. But how does the signal from Voyager 1 and 2 would have to point perfectly back to reach Earth? I mean, of course, it's ridiculous. And I've actually had people email me saying, well, Matt, it's not like a laser beam signal. It diffuses. And literally people in our own truth community trying to explain to me somehow how Voyager 1 and 2 could possibly communicate with Earth. Like, what? People in our... Matt, if they emailed you that, they ain't in our community. If it diffused out... I mean, the reason I lose the damn FM signal when I drive from Philadelphia to the Jersey Shore is because it diffuses out and I lose the signal strength. If it diffused out, it couldn't reach Earth a billion miles away. Anyway, so I said I have to explain to him the most basic example. I said, again, Matt, you said you'd be brief, 1 minute or less. If I had a BB gun here, we were at the bar, and there it is, what is it, Old Granddad. They still have that whiskey. If I could shoot that Old Granddad, right, with his BB gun, and I could be pretty drunk and still do it. Yeah, it's just right there in front of us, 5 feet away. That's not top shelf, middle shelf. So, well, what if that Old Granddad was in Beijing, China? Okay, do you see how if my BB gun was off by just 1/100th of a millimeter, that my BB would land like down in Shanghai instead of in Beijing, and how distances magnify if something's off just a little bit? Well, then from here to Beijing, then that it's like hundreds of millions of times farther where they say this Voyager is, but somehow the dish is pointing. He couldn't understand that. Could not, and whatever he was saying back, it wasn't as ridiculous as I saw it on TV. It was almost as ridiculous as I saw it on TV. He kept going back to, I know 1 minute or less, but well, Matt, those satellites do it all the time. If the satellites can beam your direct TV, well, why would Voyager be any different? And I didn't want to get into what some of us think about. We question everything, but let's not get into that. I said, well. But okay, that would be where that satellite is would be the equivalent of the satellite being in the same room with us in terms of the distances you're talking about. He just wasn't getting it, and I was like, are we literally in different realities? Well, who knows if we'll ever truly know. There's something to be said about that, and I'll never take it off the table. Okay, separate topic. Remember that Pantone color of the year? I guess for 2023 was magenta. And many of us, including myself, would like, well, who is this Pantone? What is this company that decides who the color of the year is? No one had ever really heard of it. I know it's probably been around and maybe I missed it, but it did come into prominence pretty quickly when few had heard about it. Well, it's obvious what this is. This is the Not-Nilk's attempt to literally control the colors of this Earth or reality system. Someone sent me an article here. Something like, meet Pantone, the company that owns almost every color you can think of. Now, when you read into the article, it talks about companies trademarking their particular shade of color, with T-Mobile just trying to sue everybody that's even remotely close to their industry using any color that's close to the T-Mobile magenta, or McDonald's suing. McDonald's can't sue, the way I understand it is they can't sue a company that's in completely a different line of work or business. So a baseball bat manufacturer happens to use the same shade. That's the way I understand it. McDonald's could sue even a cattle rancher, something at all remotely related to what McDonald's does. A certain ranch that just has the cattle grazing on the ground, McDonald's could sue them if the brand of yellow was too close to their golden, was it Golden Arches or Golden Arcs? So Mr. McDowell of McDowell's, Cleo McDowell had the Golden Arcs. McDonald's had the Golden Arches, right? I've watched Coming to America so many times to get that confused. And I don't know which one of the two has the sesame seed bun. But anyway, so if it's close, but they do this through Pantone. It's so not milk, it's disgusting. Pantone has labeled every possible color. I don't know how many, tens of thousands, one shade next to another. The human eye could not distinguish between them, but Pantone supercomputer has distinguished between them. And, this is Pantone. You used to have a color wheel like on your old computer. You could just, it was color. It was just a number, right? No. Now it's Pantone 5176432. What? It has a whole number, but it's a Pantone number. So you work through Pantone for your lawsuits. And, sure, this doesn't just stink of the not milk trying to control one more aspect of reality. Here we go again. Reality gives itself away. If anything in this world were real, first color lawsuit, and we've done this recently, so it'll be 1 minute or less, 100 years ago, somebody said, we use that shade of blue in this company, and the judge would have said, sorry, the colors are of this world. Colors of the rainbow, and flowers can have colors that aren't exactly Roy G. Biv, but there's all different colors in nature, and colors are derived from certain frequencies, and we assume all these colors somewhere exist in nature, and I'm sorry, the first judge would have said no company can control them. If your competitor decides to use the same color, well, so what? You're both selling telephones, right? Outcompete your competitor, and stop wasting this court's time. If anything were real, that's how the world would work. And this is one example of tens of thousands of this same common sense would resort back. But people like my friend Tony, your Normie, your Aunt Ginny, they just think it's just normal. That's something like color should be tied up in the courts. Nobody demands common sense. Most of the headache in our lives could have gone away 30, 40 years ago. This is just the way the world is to people, and they can't see the common sense of how ridiculous it is that we are in the situation in the first place. You have T-Mobile as the worst offender running around, which is a Deutsche Telekom trying to sue anybody that even has a color somewhat close to the magenta they use. Some of the colors I've seen aren't even magenta. They'll run around and sue. You know what? If the world were real, and the court would have said, T-Mobile, nobody controls colors, and everybody you've hassled over the last 5 years, you're going to pay them back with millions of dollars of punitive damages. Now get you and your shitty cell phone out of my courtroom. Thanks for listening.